Be honest. How many times have you stared at your phone, waiting for a reply that never came? How often have you matched with someone you barely know, felt a surge of obsession, and decided they were perfect or toxic without any evidence? How many situationships have you lived entirely in your head, building castles of hope and dungeons of suspicion from 3 emojis and a half smile? Carl Jung would ask a harder question. Are you dating other people, or are you fighting your own shadow while using their face as the screen? Modern dating is runway lighting for projection. Profiles are edited myths. Messages are curated fragments. You fill the gaps with what you fear or crave. You pin halos to strangers and horns to anyone who threatens your pride. You swipe for hours, then complain everyone's shallow. You ghost, get ghosted, and label the whole species broken. But the common denominator in every match, clash, and grey zone purgatory is you, and the parts of you you'd rather not meet. Jung's shadow is the denied self. Your hunger, neediness, envy, entitlement, panic, rage, and tenderness you declared, not me. When you won't hold those pieces, you outsource them. You blame dating culture for your anxiety, worship chemistry to avoid commitment, perform nonchalance to hide attachment, and confuse fantasy with fate. The app becomes a mirror you mistake for a window. Look at your patterns. The one who doesn't text back becomes disrespectful because your shadow fears abandonment. The ultra-attentive one becomes clingy because your shadow fears intimacy. The attractive stranger becomes the one because your shadow craves rescue from loneliness you refuse to feel. Every story you tell about them is also a sentence about you. The platforms accelerate it. Infinite choice amplifies perfectionism. Micro-validations train compulsive seeking. Delayed replies spark catastrophic narratives your shadow writes at 2 a.m. Ghosting becomes anesthesia. Easier to vanish than admit you're afraid to disappoint or be disappointed. You call it standards. Jung calls it avoidance dressed as virtue. If this stings, good. Pain is a signal, not to quit, but to wake up. You don't fix modern dating by lecturing the masses. You fix it by withdrawing projections, owning impulses, and facing the shadow that swipes with your thumb. Until you do, you'll keep shadowboxing. Exhausted, defensive, certain you're unlucky, when you're just unseen to yourself. Tonight, don't ask why they didn't choose you. Ask why your shadow keeps choosing the same script and what it's protecting you from. Name that, and you'll stop punching ghosts and start meeting people. Open the app and your shadow gets to work. A few photos, a sentence about hiking, and suddenly you've written a novel. She's grounded, soulful, ready for something real. Or the opposite. One playful caption, and you've decided she's chaotic, unserious, dangerous to your peace. That leap isn't intuition, it's projection. Jung warned, what you don't own in yourself, you'll pin onto others and call it truth. Projection is efficient. It saves you from ambiguity by filling gaps with recycled certainty. Idealization lets you skip the slow, uncertain process of discovery. You crown a stranger to avoid risking rejection. Devaluation lets you stay superior. You dismiss someone early to avoid being evaluated yourself. Both are shadow moves, protection through distortion. Notice your favorite projections. If you fear being ordinary, you'll chase exceptional matches and ignore good people who don't glitter, and then resent no one being serious. If you fear being controlled, you'll label any boundary red flag and flee into perpetual options. If you fear your own need, you'll hunt for mind-blowing chemistry to justify rushing past vulnerability, then blame them when the fire can't heat a home. Apps supercharge this. ambiguity is oxygen for projection, and profiles are ambiguity distilled. Intermittent reinforcement, likes, matches, random replies, keeps your nervous system gambling. Your shadow loves the casino because games feel safer than intimacy. You can chase, posture, and perform without admitting you're scared. How do you break the loop? Convert projection into inquiry. When you feel the halo or the horns forming, pause and ask, what am I assuming, and what evidence do I actually have? What in me wants this to be true? What would it cost me if I were wrong? Then test reality. A call instead of endless texting. A short meetup instead of week-long fantasy. A direct question instead of reading tea leaves. Name your pattern in the chat without theatrics. I move fast when I'm excited. I'm slowing myself down. Or, I tend to go quiet when I'm unsure. I'm practicing saying that out loud. You're not oversharing. You're disarming your shadow. You're inviting reality to replace projection. Finally, filter by behavior, not vibe. Vibes mirror your mood. Behavior reveals their character. Do they keep micro commitments? Do they repair missteps? Do they match effort? Projection shadows in the face of consistent action. Let consistency be your antidote to fantasy and your proof against cynicism. The app didn't fool you. Your shadow did. Take back the pen and write fewer fairy tales, more honest chapters. You've done it. You've had it done to you. Message is slow, the drift begins, and then nothing. No closure, no feedback, just absence. You call it how it is now, but Jung would call it what it is, avoidance. Ghosting is shadow work in reverse. Instead of meeting discomfort consciously, you vanish to preserve an image of yourself you prefer, nice, busy, above drama, while outsourcing the cleanup to someone else's nervous system. Why do you ghost? Because saying no exposes your shadow to guilt, shame, or conflict. Because you've tied your self-worth to being likable, and honest rejection threatens that identity. Because you're addicted to options and closure feels like losing supply. Or because a part of you believes you don't matter enough to merit a hard conversation, so you treat others how you fear you deserve to be treated, disposable. The shadow hates mirrors. Ghosting breaks them. Why does ghosting wreck you when you're on the receiving end? Not because silence is information, it often is, but because your shadow rushes to fill the void with self-attack. I said too much. I wasn't enough. I knew it. Beneath the story sits an older wound, abandonment, invisibility, humiliation, now reactivated by an avatar with a pretty smile and poor skills. You're not just losing a chat, you're reliving a chapter. How do you step out? By practicing what the culture avoids. Warm, clear endings. One sentence can change your whole nervous system. Thank you for the conversation. I don't feel the fit, and I'm going to exit here. Wishing you well. That's not weakness. That's shadow hygiene. It protects both reputations, frees both calendars, and trains you to tolerate small discomforts so you don't create larger harms. On the receiving end, build a closure ritual that doesn't depend on them. 2 questions in your notes. What did I actually observe? What did I make it mean? Write the meaning, then cross out the parts that are guesses. Replace with a boundary. If they go silent for X days, I release the thread and redirect energy. Your shadow thrives on maybe. Your health thrives on rules. Apps won't teach you endings. They monetize churn. You teach yourself by refusing to disappear and refusing to chase ghosts. You become rarer by leaving doors gently closed rather than slamming them, or wandering forever in hallways you should exit. Ghosting is not strategy, it's spiritual procrastination. Practice small courages and you won't need the big avoidances. Resentment feels righteous. It gives you energy when you're depleted, certainty when you're confused, superiority when you're hurt. But Jung would warn, resentment is the shadow's caffeine, briefly empowering, ultimately dehydrating. In app culture, resentment multiplies. They're all flaky. No one wants real connection. Everyone's a narcissist. Generalizations feel like wisdom. They're anesthesia. Why do you reach for resentment? Because it's easier than grief. Grief says, I wanted something and didn't get it. Resentment says, they're the problem. Grief asks you to feel your loneliness. Resentment lets you feel big instead. Grief is metabolized through the body. Resentment is recycled in the mind. You pick the second because scrolling is simpler than sobbing. How does resentment show up? You harden your profile into a resume. You interrogate on date 1. You test instead of reveal. You punish new people for old injuries. Show up late to prove you're not too available. Stay vague to avoid being played. Keep options warm as insurance. Your shadow calls this prudence. It's preemptive rejection. The cost is huge. Resentment corrodes curiosity. You stop asking, who are you? And start hunting for confirmation of your thesis. People disappoint. You miss red flags because you want to be right about cynicism. You miss green flags because you're invested in doom. The shadow wants vindication more than it wants love. How do you detox? Replace blame with boundary and ritualize release. Boundary. Upgrade your filters. I don't continue with chronic inconsistency, no-shows, sexual pressure, and enforce without drama. Ritual. After a mismatch, do 3 brief moves. Note 1 thing you liked to resist global disdain, 1 thing that misaligned to refine your map, and 1 next step you'll do differently to put learning in motion. Small, fast, repeatable. Then practice clean praise. Instead of everyone sucks, message appreciation when someone shows skill, even if you're not a fit. Loved your punctuality and questions. Thanks for the conversation. You're not courting. You're cultivating a culture you want to live in. Your shadow whispers, they don't deserve it. You answer, I do. Finally, anchor in embodiment. Resentment lives in abstract speech. Reality lives in your senses. Before you write them off or crown them, check your body on the date. Breath pace, jaw tension, warmth in the chest, the ease of silence. Your body is less fooled by projection than your narrative brain. Resentment is a seductive identity. Trade it for standards, grief, and movement. You'll date fewer ghosts and more humans, including the one in your mirror. You don't beat projection, ghosting, and resentment with quotes and hacks. You beat them with boring repetitions that rewire your nervous system. Jung's path is concrete. Turn toward what you deny, name it, sit with it, integrate it, and let it inform, not govern, your choices. Here's how that looks in modern dating without turning your matches into therapists. Pre-date audit, 5 minutes. What am I hoping this person will fix in me tonight? What red flags do I historically minimize? What behaviors will tell me this is safe to explore further? Write it, not to manifest, but to anchor. You're interrogating your shadow before it hijacks the date. Profile truthing. Replace performance with signal. State your pace. I move slow after initial interest. Your boundary. I don't continue with ghosting or mixed signals. And your interest. I like planning. I'll propose times. You'll repel chaos and invite those who appreciate clarity. Your shadow will fear fewer options. Your soul wants better ones. Messaging rules. Convert vibes into action. 2 exchanges, then suggest a short call. If they resist any path to reality while keeping you chatting, label it. Entertainment, not courtship. Shadow loves the infinite hallway. Healthy you prefers doors. First date structure. Keep it short, sober, and scheduled. Chemistry is not character. Pressure distorts data. Choose environments where conversation beats spectacle. Your shadow hunts intensity. You're collecting information. Naming discomfort live. When you feel yourself performing, say so lightly. I can feel my interview mode turning on. Let me try curiosity again. This interrupts the shadow's script and invites their humanity. If they can meet you there, green flag. Close your muscles. End clearly when it's a no, and request clarity when you're unsure. I'm not feeling the match, wishing you well. Or, I'm unsure and would try once more. If you're not, all good. You're training your system to survive truth. Micro boundaries with yourself. Set a daily limit for app time, a weekly cap on first dates, and a non-negotiable recovery ritual after mismatches. Walk, journal, call a non-cynical friend. The shadow thrives on compulsive loops. You thrive on cadence. Shadow integration practice, 10 minutes daily. Write a dialogue between you and the part that craves rescue, the part that fears being ordinary, the part that wants control. Ask what each part protects you from. Thank it. Negotiate. You can warn me, but you can't drive. Over time, projection loses fuel. This isn't glamorous. It's adult. An adult love is built by adults who can withstand their own weather without making a stranger responsible for the storm. What would dating feel like if you stopped performing for fantasy and started stewarding reality? Imagine fewer threads, more traction, fewer highs, deeper steadiness, less flattery, more respect. Jung's wager is simple. When you relate to your shadow, you stop relating to strangers as stand-ins for your wounds. You meet them where they are, and you meet yourself where you've been hiding. Your new stance is quiet and unmistakable. You move with standards you can say in one breath. You escalate toward reality early, end gently when misaligned, and let grief pass through so resentment doesn't calcify. You refuse the dopamine carnival of endless maybes and choose the nerve-wracking simplicity of yes-no. You protect your dignity by protecting theirs. Clear beginnings, clear endings, no disappearing acts, no hostage-taking with silence. You will still be disappointed. You will still disappoint, but you will not be confused in the same way. Confusion was projection. Exhaustion was overinvestment in fantasy. Rage was grief wearing armor. With practice, you will feel the old reflex, halo, horns, vanish, seethe, and you will breathe, name it, and choose differently. That is shadow integration. Not perfection, but authorship. Let app culture keep rewarding theatrics. You'll reward reality. You'll be the uncommon presence who replies when you say you will, who speaks a boundary without apology, who closes doors without slamming them. Your reputation becomes its own filter. The unserious self select out. The few who remain are grown, and so are you. If this landed, don't feel inspired and move on. Do one concrete act today that puts your shadow on the table and your integrity in charge. Rewrite your profile signals. Schedule a call. End a thread cleanly. Set a time cap. Journal the story your silence invented. Small acts compound. So does cowardice. If you're choosing stewardship over shadowboxing, drop your thoughts below in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want weekly reps that strengthen standards, not cynicism. Share this with a friend stuck in the ghost fantasy loop. We're here to win ourselves and meet people, not projections.